So today's topic is week 14. We only have one more week left. This week, we're talking about cross-cultural moves, the idea of differences between cultures, specifically moving abroad to a different country and then coming home. Most people understand not only that our class PPT is here, but there's an article here and videos here. We also have this PPT, which was created and shared with everyone in week 1 and 2. So I'm going to start today, since I don't hear people talking about the final exam questions. I'm still waiting for you to talk about the questions. I'm going to start with a review of what the culture is, weeks 1 and 2, and show this presentation. Again, today we are talking about managing cross-cultural transitions, moving abroad and back home. I'm not sure if you guys have moved abroad very much. I have. I've moved within my home country several times to completely different areas. I moved from Toronto to the North Pole, living with Inuit and Eskimos, completely different community. And then I moved back down to Toronto. Then I moved to the French part of Canada, completely different culture. Then I moved to the Spanish part of the United States. Then I moved to Mexico and South and Central America. And of course, I've moved to Asia, Korea for a while, and Vietnam. Several different, each of these areas have very different cultures. Many people would think it's exciting, but they forget you are created in one way. So the idea of cultures can be complex. Do you have a good understanding of how to appreciate the differences in cultures? Can you think of other ways to characterize cultures? Most people, they usually think of the other cultures as sexy or interesting. I want to go have a vacation with it. Or they're more like Hitler and they don't like it. Maybe they're really bad and they want to kill the other culture. So in our class, I want to make sure you are ready to manage people from other cultures. So in our first 2 weeks, I gave you this picture, this circular picture. It's a definition of culture. Culture is creating values. It consists of the values. The values makes up the attitudes makes up the behavior makes up the culture makes up the values. It's a big circle. So culture consists of values, beliefs, attitudes of a group. It's largely shaped by leadership, and there's core values, and it includes risk tolerance, interest in family, power, individualism, many things. Orientation with respect to people, teams, and outcome, attention to detail, communication. There's many things. Hofstede is somebody that everyone in our class should know. It's a very, very famous professor and researcher of international management. And related to that, in addition to knowing about culture, there is self-reference criterion, ethnocentrism, and parochialism. Everyone in class should know those. You start as a baby with being parochial. You are born a baby and you only know what your mom teaches you. So you're only knowing one culture, one way of doing things. Even as you grow up, you start seeing people doing something different, a different culture. You will think they're strange or they're bad or they're wrong because you don't know it's a different culture. They're just doing something different. Eventually, you go to a school, maybe you're educated at a great university like Keimyung University, and you learn there are other cultures. But learning that there are other cultures doesn't mean you understand the other cultures. So you become ethnocentric. Ethnocentric is somebody learns there are other cultures, but you believe your way is correct and the other ways are strange. So ethnocentrism is the myth that your own culture or company knows best how to do things. And the biggest problem everyone almost always has is you have one brain, one personality, one heart, one set of values. So you make up your own mind. And so you rely on yourself. That criteria of relying on yourself. Jung, Jung, how are you today? Jung, can you hear me? Jung, going once, going twice, going 3 times. We may need to, okay, this type of thing is good. I'm going to be trying to ask everyone to be able to show the video is working. For example, Jun So Yoon and Song Ji Hyun, you guys will not be able to stay in class and you will not be able to take the exam if I don't see you fully participating in a class. You need to have the video for the full amount of time for an exam. I won't be able to keep teaching you during the exam, turn your video on or look at the video. If I do that, I'm going to interrupt everyone else doing the exam. So your training is now. Same thing with your mic and the chat. Jung, Yunjung, can you say hello if you're in our class, or is that just a puppet in front of the video? Last chance before I put you in the waiting room. Okay, moving to the waiting room. Yoon, Jung So, or Jung So Yoon. Same thing. You're going to move to the waiting room because your video is not on. Lee Chang-gyun, same thing. You're moving to the waiting room because your video is not on. Even the people like Jung Sung-jin, without being able to show yourselves in the videos, those are issues. So the question was, for everyone, with the criterion of relying on yourself. Kwan, Junha, can you answer, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? Is self-reference criterion good or bad?
Bad. Bad thing. I think bad.
Good. Perfect. The answer for the exam would agree with you. This could be a question for the exam. Would anybody? No? Okay, so I'm going to explain why. When you decide things only on your own values and beliefs, that means you might assume the other value and belief is wrong or bad. And so if you don't fully consider the other cultures, you will make mistakes. So this slide is very important. The other question, the other idea of what are the cultural aspects of Korea? Everyone knows Korea has these. We've gone through this. We've talked about the idea that one thing that's interesting about Korea is Korea has a twin country, El Salvador. I used to live for quite a while in El Salvador. The culture there is almost very, very similar to Koreans. As you can see here, purple and green. They have the same power distance. They have almost the exact same individualism, collectivism feeling. They have very similar masculinity, and they have very close uncertainty avoidance. And El Salvador is even more avoiding of uncertainty than Korea. But Korea says that there is a very low level of tolerance for uncertainty. What that means is you don't feel comfortable with anything you don't know. That is why most Korean professors say, today we will do 1, 2, and 3. And so number 1 is this, 1, blah, blah, blah. Number 2 is this, blah, blah, blah. Number 3 is this, blah, blah, blah. Now we review number 1, 2, and 3. And for homework, do homework number 1, 2, and 3. And tomorrow we'll do number 4, 5, and 6. And Korean students feel uncomfortable when there is an open mic night, for example. So it would be good for all Koreans if you go to a bar or karaoke and they have open mic and you just walk up to the mic and practice, start talking about anything. That is very maybe not popular in Korea, but it's a very good exercise to help you learn how to adapt and work well in other cultures. You have to start talking more. So the idea to in an effort to minimize or reduce this uncertainty, Korea and these countries, they make strict rules, strict laws, strict policies, and strict regulations are made and adopted and implemented to make Korean people comfortable with more rules, more understanding. The ultimate goal is to control everything in order to eliminate or avoid unexpected things. So usually, Korean society is not readily able to accept change. It's very risk adverse. That is not my definition. That is the definition from this guy, Hofstede. I highly encourage you guys to check out what he's talking about. He's showing this. We've gone through this several times. And again, this shows whatever country you want. You can change the countries. Maybe compare it to China, even though China and Korea are side by side. Blue and orange, there's quite a bit of a difference here. Blue and orange, it's similar here. Blue and orange, very big difference in masculinity. Blue and orange, very, very big difference in uncertainty avoidance. So again, we can see these details that we're talking about. Again, these details are explained here. Next, what culture is not. Culture is not right or wrong. It's not good or bad that somebody is different. It's not good or bad that somebody is a high score or a low score. It's just different. It's not about an individual behavior. Culture is about a group. It refers to a collective phenomenon of shared values and meanings. It's not inherited. You can be born from your mother and father, but if you are raised in a different country or with a different group of people, you can have a different culture than your mom and dad. So culture is derived from the social environment. Make sure you're aware of that. Later, if we do get more people being, again, if we get more people being more proactive, if we get more people trying to propose things, if we get more people trying to ask questions, I will go through and we can do this activity. But if people stay sort of quiet, we're just going to go on to the next session, and I will show several possible things that we could talk about even in the next class if people run out of time. Is that clear? Hoa, can you go ahead and if anybody's in the waiting room, let them back in. Try to send a note to them reminding them that they need to have their videos and mics working.
Yeah, I did that already.
Great,
So
thanks.
I'm talking to them. Yeah.
At the beginning of the semester, we talked about this. This is one of my favorite examples because I have dealt with this example quite a bit. This example is talking about a guy from Sweden that is working in Kashmir, or basically there's one European guy working in India, the same thing. The European guy or the North American guy, when he's working in India, some people in India, they have these Hindu values, which are, they're rapidly growing in Europe and North America, but they're not traditionally very popular in North America. So the North American guy or the Swedish European guy, his value is usually, as we saw with Hofstede, he usually not only values equality, but he also values money and individual details. And so if somebody is individually working well, the European person or the North American person will give that individual person an individual bonus or an individual reward. North Americans, when they're working, they will actually ask for the reward. One more time. One more time. If you are working in a North American company, if you have a North American boss or a European boss, do you hear me, Yunso? And Son Jimin, if you have a North American boss or teacher, you should ask them sometimes for a bonus if you think you deserve it. If you think you deserve more marks, you should ask for it. If you think you want a pay raise, you should ask for it. That is normal in Europe and North America. And if it's normal for them, that's what they're waiting for before things are going to change. So this example, the guy from the Swedish guy, he started working with the Pakistani guy in India, and he saw the Pakistani Indian guy working very hard, and so he gave him a bonus. And he was shocked when that guy never came back to work. UNO, can you guess why? If a European or North American or a Swedish guy is working in India and he sees a guy working very hard and he gives him a cash bonus, but that worker doesn't come back to work, can you guess why?
Maybe he thought like religious things, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so that maybe it's a religious holiday and the guy doesn't want to work on a religious holiday. That could be true. Okay.
So religious something like beliefs.
It could be, yes. What you're saying is still saying things that are popular by a student. The more you talk with older people or the more you talk with executives, the more precise you should be. So, for example, just saying religious beliefs, there are many, many, many religions and many, 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 many different beliefs. So, what I just lost my screen. So, this idea is you should be specific. This boy that was working hard, he thought he was doing his best, and then he was getting good pay, and then all of a sudden somebody paid much, much more. And so the worker thought, well, I don't deserve something different. So because I don't deserve something different, I am going to get somebody else to do my job. So that this worker got his brother to come in and start working for him, thinking maybe the brother can do better work. Maybe he deserves this more pay. That's shocking to me. It's shocking to North America, many North Americans. So I don't know if Song Ji-hyun or Kim Ji-soo, I don't know if you are normal, if you accept that or not. That is a Hindu belief. The Hindu belief is that your standard of living doesn't change in your lifetime. If some part of your life changes a lot, maybe you don't deserve it. You should get somebody else to do it. So that's what we're talking about. Here's another example. Can you guys see this? It's a little bit hard to see. So I'm going to read this question to you guys, and then I'm going to maybe ask this as an exam question. So Jung, So-yun, and Song Ji-hyun, would you like an exam question? I'll read it to you. You want to try to answer the exam? Everyone in class? Song Ji-hyun, would you like me to give you an exam question?
Yeah.
I don't really hear anything from you, so I take that you're not interested. I'll go to the next. Is that correct, Song Ji-hyun? You're not interested?
I would like to get a question.
Then talk to me, for crying out loud. I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to give you guys stuff. Raise your voice. This idea of being afraid to talk, and if you think that I am powerful as the professor and you're not supposed to talk with the professor, well, I am Canadian. I am equal to you. And I actually think that since you pay tuition and you pay my salary, you should be the boss. You should say something. So try to speak up. I'll read this question. So a major hotel chain that was going to develop new hotel in the islands of Tahiti. He had a developer contracted with a Tahitian skilled worker that was carving large wooden totem poles. So he was the hotel developer, the construction company, contacted a Tahitian worker making statues, wooden statues. The hotel desired to have many of these tsi or statues to put on the hotel property with the local island atmosphere. For example, this another way to say it is a Seoul guy, a Seoul company wanted to make a hotel chain in Jeju-do. And you know the culture of Seoul, go, 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 work, 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 is very different culture than in Jeju-do. And it's very different than in Hawaii. Everybody should understand that. Well, Tahiti is a smaller, more exotic, more tropical island. Much, much different culture. So the Tahiti statue maker, he quoted a price for making the first tsi or totem pole statue, and then he quoted a higher price for the second statue and an even higher price for each totem pole he was making. And for this, of course, it shocked the hotel manager. Understand? So the question is, why? Is that Tahiti guy smoking drugs? Is that Tahiti guy crazy? Can anybody in class try to understand the other culture? Today, we're talking about when you go to another culture and you come back, or when you move to another culture, can you understand how to work with it? One way to work with it is you have to understand all of the different cultural aspects. In most international aspects, people are generally equal and people talk relatively directly with everyone. In Korea, it's different. So I'm encouraging you to try this different way. So can you try to understand why this hotel developer is getting a strange answer from the Tahitian worker? Anybody want to guess? Oh my gosh. I'm giving general questions. I don't want to ask specific names. Please try to be proactive. And so far, nobody asks questions. Again, the question is here. The hotel chain is deciding to make a new hotel in this tropical island of Tahiti. And the construction worker asked the Tahiti wood carver to make a wooden totem or a statue or a tsi. And for the first one he was going to make, it cost, let's say, $100. But for the second one, if he sells two, he said it was going to cost $150 each. And if you want three, then he says it's going to cost $200 each. And if you want four, maybe it's $250 each. Does that make sense to you? Kim Jae-hyun? What about Jung Yu-jung? Does that make sense to you? We can start with just a yes or a no. I would like you to try to start guessing. If you do that, if you can try to manage your culture, that's part of the lesson today. The lesson today is when you're crossing cultures, what do you have to do? The answer is you must identify what is the culture in that other area, the new area, and then you must understand your culture and try to change your culture to match that new local culture. So for our class, I'm trying to get everyone to follow the average international style, which means talking more, even if you're not comfortable. Again, anybody want to try to guess why would the Tahitian guy say something different?
Me, Professor.
Go ahead.
We need to follow the culture from the local culture. We have to follow the local culture.
Yes. Yes. So the question is, why did the local worker increase the price of each one the more they ordered? In North America, I come from Canada. If you order one, you pay a high price. If you order 10, you pay a lower price for each one. You get a discount, right? The more you order, the bigger the discount you get. Is that normal to you? Anybody want to describe that? Is it normal in Korea? If you order one, you pay a high price. If you order 1,000 or if you order 100, you get a discount and you pay a lower price each one.
Normally
comments?
pay discount when you buy a lot.
Normally you have a discount when you buy a lot. So in Tahiti, it's the opposite. The more he ordered, the more he wanted to buy, the higher the price was. So my question to you is, that's different from your culture, so try to guess why. If you want to survive in North America, if you want to survive in Europe, if you want to do well in a different culture, a different country, you have to understand your culture in Korea is probably very different. So you have to practice pushing yourself, push yourself to try to be like the other culture. I'm not saying it's right and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying to fit in and be comfortable there, you need to adopt that other culture. So why? Why is the Tahiti guy raising the price?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, but I think in the culture, if you just make more, then the people who manufacture the goods more demand the pay. So that's why if buy the more, then the pay is just increasing there.
Okay. Kim Jae-hyun, can you guess?
Professor?
Yes, go ahead. As you're starting to give your answer, can I get everyone in class, if you want me to count you as being in class today, right now, write down one guess for this answer. Write it in the chats. If I read
Maybe
you
the
have a
first-
reasonable guess in the chat area, I will count you as being part of this class and I'll give you the attendance point today. So go ahead. UNO, tell us your guess and write it in the chats. What is your guess?
Can I just speak?
Yes.
Maybe because there is not much transportation industry or infrastructure, so maybe that's why it might be so expensive if you order much, I think.
Okay, good guess, maybe. I don't see many people writing down chats. A few people are starting to write chats. The people that will write down a Zoom chat guess for this question will be counted for being in the class today, and I'll give you attendance points. Does anybody want me to repeat the question, or is the question clear? Kwan, Junhan, do you understand the question? Can you repeat the question?
No, I don't understand that.
Okay, the question is, people in Korea and people in North America and usually in Europe, when you order one product, you pay a high price. If you order more products, or if you order many products, usually you get a discount. So you pay lower price each one you buy. Correct? But in Tahiti, it's the opposite. The more you order, the more the price goes up. The opposite of a discount. So I'm asking everyone in class, write down a guess. Even if you want to write down, it's because of purple monkeys in Tahiti, or pink elephants, or purple crocodiles. You can write down any guess. Just write down something. I want to see you practice trying to communicate in this different culture. So in our chats, we have, how many people in class today? 24 people active. There should be 24 different chat guesses. Each one that guesses, I will give you the attendance point. And we'll come back. We also talked about this in class. The idea of sometimes if you survey people in other cultures, obviously there's the white people culture, or the yellow people, or brown people, or Asian culture. Some people can define, one more time. Some people will divide people by skin color, which is very bad. You should not do that. But if you do survey people in North America and survey people in East Asia, this question, if you have these three things, two round things like pipes and one square thing, and one of the round things and the square things are made of the same material, when you have this new one, which ones go together? Does this new middle one go with the blue pipe that's the same shape, or does it go with the square thing that's made of the same material? And when you survey people in North America, usually they will say that the color does not matter. So the pipe goes together with the pipe. But because of the quality and for many reasons, East Asian people think how you are made, the blood that is inside you, is what makes you. So this pipe type of wood and this square wood have the same type of material, same type of blood. So these two go together by almost all people in Asia. That type of thing is very hard to match. For example, if you go to a North American type of environment and you always think of blood is what makes you, or the material is what makes something, it's going to be hard for you to start thinking that just your environment is the only thing important. So when you go to a new environment, try to think, what is the culture? What is my culture? And what is the other culture of other local people? And you need to try to match the culture of the local people. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes like this, it's very hard. Here is another question. Sometimes when you go to a country and you ask or you survey people with this question, these are the answers that people usually give. And the answers to this question. It is important for managers to have precise answers to most possible questions your worker may ask at work. So if you're working, or if you're a professor and a student or a worker asks you a question, should you have the exact answer? And in Sweden, they say, no, you don't need to have the exact answer. It's okay to say, I don't know, talk to this other guy. And in the Netherlands and United States, it's also okay to say, I don't know. But in Japan or in Spain, in Indonesia, when a professor is asked a question or a manager is asked a question, he should have the answer. Even if he doesn't know, he should guess the answer. That is the cultural requirement. Or people just don't ask those questions. So make sure you understand that. In Korea, it's the same type of thing. Have you ever thought that's why you don't ask questions in Korea? Have you ever thought why you've heard some stories about a student asked a Korean professor a question and the Korean professor was angry and he hit the Korean student? Have you ever heard that story before? Moon Tae-kyun, have you ever heard that story before?
No.
When did that happen?
Really? You've never heard, even with your parents or your grandparents, sometimes a teacher hitting somebody asking the teacher questions? That's
Maybe
part of Korean culture.
that might have happened like decades ago.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
I've
And
never heard about my
what
parents
happened-
and my teacher. So
okay, well, it happened. Maybe you haven't researched. I have researched. It used to happen quite a lot in Korea. That is one of the reasons why you don't ask many questions, because your grandparents and your parents were not comfortable asking many questions because they didn't do it. You never saw it happen. That's why everybody in class, you're not asking questions now. I am being paid by you to teach you. And in my culture, it's normal, like in the United States, even more so in Canada, it's normal for people to ask me any question. And I will tell you, I know the answer or I don't know the answer. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you where I might find it or how we might find it. And we can find the answer together. So try to understand your culture and other cultures. If you go and move to North America, moving from this type of environment, going to this other type of environment, you need to be able to start asking more questions, even if you don't feel comfortable with it, even if you don't like it. For you to fit in, that is one way to do it. Another question is, in order to have efficient work relationships, it's often necessary to bypass the hierarchical order or the hierarchical line. Do you understand what this means? In Korea, there's a very specific hierarchy. The lowest level person works for his manager, and the manager works directly for the senior manager, and the senior manager works for the executive manager, and the executive manager works for the junior director. The junior director works for the regular director, and the regular director works for the senior director. The senior director works for the vice president, something like that. There is a very specific hierarchical line. And this question is saying, in order to have efficient work, you should go around your boss and go to the next higher person. Well, this is saying disagreement rates is, in Sweden, 26% disagree. United States, 32%, up to in Spain and China. Spain, 74% have that more relationship-oriented culture. 74% disagreement rate in Spain. So if you move to Spain, you need to have a very big change of thinking style to fit in. That's just one way to start thinking about it. Next, I think we've done this before. Can I ask everybody in class to take a look at this box? I'm going to give you something like 5 seconds. I'm going to read it, and everyone in class needs to write down in the chats how many F's are in the sentence. Finished files are the result of years of scientific study combined with the experience of years. So, done. Everyone in class should also write down in the chats how many F's were there. It's hard. What I just showed you is an example of how, not just how culture is hard, but your brain is hard. Your brain actually cheats you. Your brain will manage things according to your culture and according to how your biology works. Sometimes your brain will tell you things that are different than the truth. And that was one example. So overall, what you should do, you must learn your culture. You must learn the culture of important people around you, and you need to try to reflect that other culture. That is why our class assignment was to match a paper, a replicated paper of a Scopus high quality research article, match the same format, match the style, match the details of a Scopus paper, which is the best, almost the best in the world, and that would be good for you. Same thing, another hint for you to be successful is to surround yourself with good people. People, especially staff, are the most important key to success. Develop your social capital and network. Get and listen to experienced, trusted mentors, advisors, board members, etc. Get and retain the best. You need mentors, advisors, board members. You need to have good relationships with professors. Don't cheat yourself. Again, 24 people in our class. Many of you will cheat yourself because you're not going to ask questions and get the value from your mentors or advisors or professors. Ask questions to the professors so you get the most advantage. Does anybody want me to go back and show you this file, or can I continue? Nobody wants this? Okay, so I will go on to the next one. If you want it, you need to speak up. So one way to know yourself is to make a mind map. You can take a blank piece of paper, and on a blank piece of paper, just write down what are things that you really like. And it's best if you also write down things that you don't like. I made this mind map when I was about 14 years old, and it's still true today. After you write down what you like, then you turn the paper over and ask people to guess what jobs does this look like. And other strangers will guess this job. So when I was 14 years old, I told people I like the brains, I like the human body, I like finding answers, I like challenges, etc. And people said, you should be a medical doctor. And so I actually was. For the first several years of my career, I was a medical doctor, which was not surprising to me because my father was a medical doctor. But only after I did it, then I realized I didn't like sad, depressed, dying people, sick people. So I got out of medicine and I learned that I like international management better. So it still matches these things. So start doing that. This will help you identify who you are. What is your culture? And then try to identify the culture of people around you. Another more advanced way to understand your culture and the culture of other people is to go through this website, www.humanmetrics.com. They will ask you about 60 different questions, simple questions. You answer them, and it will tell you what type of personality and culture, communication style you have, working style you have, dating style you have. It will tell you many things. This is super, super famous. It's the Human Metrics Jung Typology Test. It was created by Carl Jung a long time ago, and it was further developed by a lady. Briggs Meyer developed this even more. So if you start checking for the MBTI on Google, or if you do this test and you start talking about it and texting people and checking for Google, Google will learn what you're interested in, and Google will start telling you what things might match you more, what jobs match you more, what people match you more, and what people piss you off more. So start doing this, and this will also help identify your culture and the culture of other people around you. Why? Why should you care? Why are we studying this liberal arts seminar in managing culture? Because most people don't know it. It's 2021. You can talk to people anywhere, any second around the world, and you can go almost anywhere in the world. I can go almost anywhere, Even North Korea, Canadians can go to North Korea. It might be a little bit hard to come back to South Korea, but that idea that you can communicate with anyone and go anywhere, you should know about these other people, but they don't. More than 2/3 of the world's CEOs feel foreign competition is the major aspect for success. 2/3 of the world's CEOs expect to generate employment and money or revenues outside your home country. Samsung, for example, is making more money outside Korea than inside Korea. I don't know for sure, but I would bet that. Coca-Cola definitely is making more profit and more revenue just in Japan than they are in all of the United States. So even in the 1980s, the US government Foreign Trade Council, he was saying 80% of US firms have significant foreign competition. And it rose from 10 years before. In the 1970s, they thought it was only 25%. Now it's almost 100%. So make sure you're aware of these details. Next, The Economist magazine. It's not the most reliable in the world, but I respect it. It's very good. They said in 1995 to 2020, the world will see the biggest shift in economic strength in more than a century. They said emerging economic giants will dwarf developed industrial economies within a generation. They said China will surpass USA as the world's biggest economy. Well, it's already done. China's economy is already bigger than the United States. Some people can argue, well, depending on this, or you study this, it could be different, but many, many people are already saying Chinese economy is bigger than the United States. So why are so many people studying the US way, and why aren't we studying more the Chinese way? Or the countries that are growing faster? Vietnam, for many years, has been one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Vietnam and Nigeria. So be aware of that. Somebody's trying to beat me. I'm not sure who it is. If it's anybody in class or the TA, just speak up in class. So I'm trying to show you there are many different cultural dimensions. US cultural dimensions example, the opposite cultural dimension example. Some cultural dimensions could be what is the nature of people? What is a person's relationship to nature? What is a person's relationship to other people? It changes depending on what country you're in. Same thing, what is your way of activity? Some people are doing, some people are being. How do people see space? Is there a private space or public space? What is a person's temporal orientation? Are you past or future or present spaced? All of those are different cultural examples. Then there's also management cultures. There's Maslow's management view, Herzberg's management view, expectancy management view. Hofstede has a management and a cultural view. Make sure we understand some books, like this book, one of our class textbooks that we had, you can see they're talking about Maslow, Hofstede, Trompenaar. These are all very, very famous people, but then they repeat Maslow and they repeat Hofstede. And if we go on to the next page, Hofstede, 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 Herzberg, Maslow, Hofstede, Hofstede, Hofstede. Hofstede is very, very popular. So we should know what is Hofstede talking about. And this first question I was asking, what is parochialism? Can somebody volunteer to guess what does parochialism mean? Anybody? Anybody want to try to be European or North American and guess? Kim Jae-kyung, can you try to guess? Do you remember what parochialism means?
Sorry, Professor.
Thanks for trying. Who else? Yu Jung, can you guess? Jung, Yu-Jung, our class is going to be finished soon, so please speak up. Jung, Yu-Jung, are you in class today or are you not in class?
Professor, she's in library, so she can't answer, I think.
Okay. Anybody? The answer is actually right here. The answer
Parochialism?
here, parochialism means viewing the world solely through your own eyes and perspective. A person with a parochial perspective does not recognize other people's different way of living and working, and they do not appreciate that the other differences can have advantages. Same thing that we talked about when we had this, and you guys were supposed to answer how many F's are here. The answer is right here. You just need to take a look at this. Everybody has access to this in our files. And that idea of, I asked you guys what was the definition. Parochialism is defined here. SRC is defined here. Ethnocentrism is defined here. The answers are actually around you. None of the questions in my class are really hard if you just look. If you try, the answer is right around you. I'm not going to make any questions for the exam hard. I will make the questions if many students do not make suggestions. I will make the questions myself. But if you want to know what are the questions for the exam and the answer, you can make that suggestion. So, like I say, SRC is talking about an unconscious reference to your own cultural values and experiences. Make sure you understand these details. Oops, let me shrink this down a little bit. There it is. So it's an unconscious reference to one's own cultural values, experiences, and knowledge as a basis for decision. Ethnocentrism, as you can see here, is the myth that your own culture or company knows best how to do things. Let's get on to other aspects. Many people think about culture with things that you know. And this shows you know culture is part of the literature or the music or the way you dance or the food you eat or the clothes you wear, the etiquette, the way you cook, your religion, your humor, pop music, sometimes fine arts or drama. Everybody knows this makes up culture for sure. But more of culture comes from what you don't see, what you're not easily aware of, like the family relationship, the gender roles, nonverbal communications. Anybody know what we're talking about with nonverbal communication? How are Koreans different than Canadians or Americans with nonverbal communications or even verbal communications? Anybody know? This also is part of the review. We're talking about what Hofstede says and what Hall says. This is more clear about what Hofstede is talking about. He says there's 4 main cultural dimensions. Here are the cultural dimensions. This is more about the cultural dimensions in different countries. What Hofstede identified US culture is different than Denmark culture, India culture, China culture. What is interesting here is US culture, almost the most important thing for culture here is almost the opposite, the least important in China. And so if we move on, Paul talks about communication, high context, low context communication. He's talking about low context cultures rely on elaborate verbal explanation putting much emphasis on spoken words. Do you understand what that means? So a low context cultures relies on many words. So what am I? John Hidden, do you think I am low context or am I high context where I emphasize not many words? I don't use many words. High context people rely on face saving and the environment. Low context relies on many words. What am I?
I think low content culture.
Right, exactly. So if you go to Canada or USA or Europe, you must rely or practice using many words. Do you want to go to another country? Jung Hedin, which country would you like to visit during the summer? If I can give you a free plane ticket anywhere and a vaccination for coronavirus.
Canada.
You want to go to oh my God, you're going to have so much headache. You're going to my home country. So that shows you, let's take out El Salvador. Maybe you don't want to go there. So, oops, I spelled my own country wrong. Here it is, Canada. So Canada is blue, Korea is orange. So blue and orange, the power distance. This is talking about, in general, how aggressive people are with jobs or how relationship oriented they are. So in Korea, you are, the power distance, there's a very big distance between powerful people and regular people. In Canada, this is a very small number. So this is saying in Canada, almost everybody's equal. And the blue in Canada, individualism, everybody's very individual. Sometimes my mother, I think, might not take care of me. She does, she loves me. But in Korea, I have a Korean wife and her mother and aunt and uncle and the whole family is more controlling my life than my Canadian mother. So the individualism, collectivism is very, very different. Masculinity is very different. If you want, we can explain that stuff here. If you go to Canada, you must understand these. So if you go there, for example, your uncertainty avoidance, you must try to match this blue area for the uncertainty avoidance. You must try to match this blue area for individualism. So don't just rely on a group. Same thing for power distance, the powerful people, you must try to think everybody's closer to equal. If you don't, you will feel difficult in Canada. The Canadian people might not match easily with you, even though Canada, some people say, has no culture. Canada is only a collection of every culture of the world. When I grew up, I had a Korean on one side of me. My neighbor was Korean. And on the other side, they were from Africa. The next house was from Germany. The next house was from Scotland. People are from almost every country in Canada. So try to learn when we are going abroad to a different, when we are moving to a different culture, you must understand your culture first and then try to understand the new culture and try to adapt to that new style. So next, in addition to Hofstede, we already talked about Hofstede, the power distance, collectivism, career orientation or relationship. This is the masculinity and then uncertainty avoidance. John Hayden, can you pick one of your classmates to read this power distance? Pick any classmate.
성진.
Great.
정성진.
Okay. The extent to which the less powerful members of organizations and institutions accept and expect that power is distributed unequally.
Good. Now, can you understand what that means?
No.
Okay, good. Would you like me to explain or do you want me to just go on to the next one?
Explain.
Thank you. Please practice asking more questions. What that means is power distance is when you talk about a country, there's obviously very powerful people and less powerful people, right? So it's talking about how much less powerful people in any country accept that the powerful people have a lot of power different than me. The opposite is some countries like Sweden, Finland, Norway, everybody's very equal. So even the less powerful member of society, they accept and they expect power is equal. There's no difference. Does that make sense? Do you want me to give you an example what we're talking about there? So power distance, Canada, it's saying there's a very low power distance. So the power is almost equal versus in Korea, it's 60. So the powerful people have a lot more power than regular people. Maybe regular students have almost no power compared to a professor. That's